If you're talking to your child's OCD like you would anxiety, you might be making it worse and you don't even know it. Well, what makes you think you cheated on the test? Okay. Well, did you? Did you look at your friend's answers? But what if you did? Okay. But you know you didn't. So then we can say, okay, I didn't look at my friend's answers. You think you went and you saw the teacher's answers? Well, did you get up? You don't think so. Well, you would know if you got up or not. So you can say to yourself, okay, I didn't look at my friend's answers. I didn't look at my teacher's answers. So why am I worried that I cheated on the test? And so you can just be like, I didn't, because I didn't get up and I didn't look anywhere. And so I'm good. But what if you did? Well, you know what you did, right? No, you said you didn't get up, right? If you're finding that you are in these circular conversations that are going nowhere fast, it might be because you are talking to your child's OCD like it's anxiety. We're going to talk about the difference and why it's so important if you want to be a good support for your child. Stay tuned. That's what's up next. Talking to your child with their struggles is one of the things that we all do as parents. It's the one gift that we can give our kids is showing up for their anxiety or OCD. The problem is if you don't know how to show up in the right way, you might be inadvertently making it worse. Hi, my name is Natasha Daniels. I'm an anxiety and OCD therapist. Been doing this for 2 decades, but more importantly, I have a couple of kids myself who are dealing with these struggles. So I get it on a deep level. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see parents making in my AT parenting community is talking to their child's OCD as if it's anxiety. Anxiety and OCD are vastly different. And we dive deep into why anxiety and OCD are not the same, how they are physiologically different, how they are diagnostically different, and how they're treated differently in the last video. This is part 2 of a 3-part series. You can catch part 1 right here. In the second part of this series, I want to talk today about how you are going to talk to your child with anxiety or OCD to make it more effective. Some of the pitfalls that a lot of parents fall into is overprocessing, reframing, rationalizing, or coming up with alternative thoughts and feelings for anxious thoughts. Those are all fantastic for anxiety, but for OCD, they can make them worse. Let's talk about why. So if you are reframing your child's intrusive thoughts and it's OCD, not anxiety, it won't work. It will fall flat. Why? Because OCD doesn't care about your facts. It doesn't care about your reframing. And so if you try to reframe your child's thoughts, it will probably look something like this. So I wonder, what makes you feel like you're cheating on your tests? Let's talk about that. Maybe we can reframe your thoughts. Like every time you think, oh my gosh, I think I'm cheating on my test, you can be like, no, I'm a good person. I don't cheat on my tests. I would never do that. No, you wouldn't do that. No, honey, you are a good person. Why would you think you're not a good person? Why didn't that go well? Because you were trying to rationalize with an irrational disorder. OCD doesn't care about your facts. It doesn't care about reframing how you're viewing it. OCD is a gut-wrenching feeling that something is wrong or incomplete or not just right or it's disgusting, and it overrides any kind of rational thinking. You can't think your way out of OCD. And when we try to do that with our kids, we wind up getting them more frustrated, like this. You want me to list all the ways you're a good person? We can go over this. I can tell you, you're a good person. You've always chose the right answer. But what if you don't? Honey, why are you getting so upset? You're feeling like a bad person now? You feel like you're a horrible person and that I don't even know? You think I'm lying? Honey, I don't lie. What is going on right now? The other thing that parents try to do is to problem solve. And a lot of therapists actually do this as well. When it's OCD and not anxiety, your problem solving can be thrown out the window. OCD doesn't care about your problem solving. OCD doesn't need your problem solving. OCD doesn't want your problem solving because there's no problem to solve. OCD will tell your child how to solve this problem, and the easiest way to solve it is just do the compulsion. Just grow me bigger and do the compulsion, whether it's mental or physical or reassurance seeking. You do what I say, you don't do what they say. That's how OCD talks. And OCD doesn't care about really good problem solving. So when you are spinning your wheels, coming up with creative, effective, wonderful solutions to outsmart this problem that OCD is creating for your child, it will probably go something like this. Look, if you're worried about the Clorox wipes, then just use this part of your hand when you're wiping on the Clorox wipe. Well, yeah, I know it's part of your hand. Well, it's not going to touch your food. If you're wiping it like this and then you're eating, if you're wiping it with this and then you eat, your fingers will be clean. But what? Well, the Clorox isn't going to climb around your hand and then be on the other side. How is that even possible? The other concern is in your problem solving, when you're approaching this in a rational sort of way, you might inadvertently coach your child to do a compulsion, kind of like this. Okay, I have a very easy fix for this. Every time you use a Clorox wipe, just wash your hands. And then you can go eat, touch your face, or do whatever. Just wash your hands thoroughly and you'll be fine. Or wear gloves. There's lots of options. Another thing that therapists do when they're dealing with anxiety, and that you might do even though you don't realize you're doing it as a parent, is cognitive restructuring. Similar to reframing, it's trying to maybe reframe the narrative that the child is saying. So if they're having an anxious thought, we want to restructure that thought and have them look at it from a different angle. But when you do that, when it comes to OCD, OCD doesn't care. In fact, sometimes it will use that and create more compulsions. There are a lot of mental compulsions that involve reassurance seeking, mentally reviewing, mentally arguing, mentally debating, and that can easily fall into this category if we're not careful. So every time you think you're going to do something bad, just reframe your thoughts and be like, hold on, am I a bad person? Do I do bad things? Let me look for evidence that I'm a good person. I've done this that's good. I've done that that's good. I'm not a liar. I'm not a cheater. I'm not a stealer. And then that thought will go away. Lastly, this is the worst one, is that sometimes OCD will hijack anxiety tools and will make it a compulsion. So when you tell kids to take deep breaths and they have OCD, it can look like this. Oh my gosh, why did I have that thought? Okay, I'll take 3 deep breaths and this thought will go away and nothing bad will happen. When you tell kids to count to 5 when they're feeling anxious, it can look like this. Oh my God, that was such an upsetting, intrusive thought. Okay, I'm going to count to 5 and this thought will never happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When it's OCD and not anxiety, we have to be careful about prescribing coping mechanisms, because OCD will say, perfect. Because a compulsion, the definition of a compulsion is just doing something, whether it's mental or physical, to get brief relief every time you have an intrusive thought. So every time I have an intrusive thought, if I take deep breaths, I can turn that into a compulsion. Every time I have an intrusive thought, I need to ground myself. I need to say this to myself. I need to do this with my parent. I need to grab this. Whatever it can be, it can turn into A plus B equals C. Intrusive thought, coping mechanism, compulsion. We don't want that. And so when we're dealing with OCD and not anxiety, we need to change it up and not be regimented and rigid in our scripting of coping mechanisms. So there might be a menu of things you can do when you're feeling stressed, or every time you're feeling stressed, do something different. We want to be very careful about not doing an A plus B equals C equation so that coping mechanisms are hijacked by OCD. So if you can't talk to OCD, you can't rationalize or reframe thinking with OCD, you can't problem solve or come up with simple solutions for OCD, And you can't even use coping mechanisms without really thinking about it with OCD, then what on earth are you supposed to do? The first step is educate, 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 educate. Teach kids what OCD is, what OCD wants. I have videos, and I'll leave them below, that will give your child an introduction to what OCD wants, what OCD is, and how it grows bigger. We want to help our kids understand that they get an intrusive thought or feeling. And then OCD's bossy. Anxiety's not bossy. OCD is bossy. Anxiety says, avoid that. I feel sick. I'm going to go in my room and put my hoodie over my head. OCD says, let me give you a list of things that's going to make this better. You need to do this and this and this, and you'll be fine. But this and this and this will actually grow OCD. And our kids don't know that. And so educating them first about the cycle of OCD. You're going to get an intrusive thought. How do you recognize this thought is OCD? Well, it feels very different than who I am. It feels invasive. It feels intrusive. It feels upsetting. And I'm being invited to fix this by OCD that says just do this or do that or think this or touch that, clean this, ask your parent that. It will give me very scripted relief. And those are called compulsions. And when I do those things, I grow OCD bigger. So the first step is educating our kids on how this happens. And then the next step is to educate them on what do they do when they have an intrusive thought. So a lot of this is coaching. So when we are dealing with anxiety, there's coaching as well as a parent, but it is partnering with them, supporting them, offering them coping skills, problem solving, reframing their thinking, talking about it, working through it. You can't do any of that with OCD. When it's OCD, we are empathizing as well. We are validating their struggles, and then we're educating them. We're educating them on how this disorder works, which, by the way, you have to get educated in order to educate them. I do have courses on that. And we're going to teach them about the cycle of OCD, that you're going to have this intrusive thought and that you're not alone. And a lot of people have this upsetting intrusive thought. And when they have this intrusive thought, OCD is going to want you to do something. And it might even involve me and want you to have me do something. And when I do that, or when you do that, or even if you have a mental compulsion and you do something in your brain that you're thinking, it grows OCD. So when you're struggling, I'm going to support you. And I'm going to support you by not feeding OCD. And so when OCD is bossy and it's bossing me around too, I'm going to say, I love you. I'm so sorry that your OCD is struggling. And so my conversations with my child when they're struggling with OCD will look more like this. I'm sorry that your OCD is making you think that you cheated on your test. And you know that with your moral OCD, OCD loves to make you feel like you're a bad person or that you're going to do bad things. And cheating on tests and doing these type of things is exactly what OCD would tell you. So what does OCD want from you in this moment? You're right? It wants you to get reassurance. It wants me to tell you that you didn't cheat. It wants us to go over every little detail, even though you know you didn't get up, you didn't look at your friend's stuff. It doesn't matter to OCD. OCD just wants you to get the reassurance from me. So what do we have to do with that? We have to say, we're not talking to OCD. I'm sorry, OCD, that you're making me feel like I cheated. I have to sit with this uncomfortable feeling. And I know that is really hard. And it will look more like this. I am so sorry that OCD is making you really worry about the Clorox wipe. And we know that OCD makes you worry about things that are poisoned and that it makes you second guess whether you're going to get sick or poisoned. And if you avoid the Clorox wipes, or if you go wash your hands, or if you wear gloves, you're just going to be growing the OCD lie bigger. And so what do you think is happening when I'm answering these reassurance questions? And I'm telling you whether you can touch your mouth or your tongue or eat food. Yeah, it's definitely growing your OCD. And so I'm not going to answer those anymore, okay? And I still expect you to use the Clorox wipes, because to not use them is going to be really be giving into your OCD and growing it bigger. And even if those are not your child's struggles, the framework of how that looks will be the same. That we are showing up and we're validating the struggles. We are being empathetic and that we understand that they're going through a hard time, and that we're not getting sucked into a loop. And we're trying to help them not getting sucked in the loop as well. So we're bringing up their awareness, their education, and we are not actually processing the content of what OCD is presenting because that is not important. It feels important to the person who's struggling with it, but that's the distraction, right? I have bird poop on my hands. I need to get it off. You don't have bird poop on your hands. I have bird poop on my hands. No, you don't. I don't need to talk about the content of bird poop. I am sorry that OCD is making you struggle right now. I'm sorry that OCD is making you feel like your hands are not clean right now. Now, spoiler alert, your kids aren't going to like this. And so with anxiety, you get a little bit more engagement, appreciation, and to be honest, progress with anxiety. Not always, but more often. Your kids are going to feel relief often when you talk to them about their anxiety struggles. They're going to maybe use their coping skills or they're going to calm down. With OCD, that's not true. It's a long game. And so in the short term, they're going to get angry with you and they're going to be like, why won't you just give me relief? Why won't you do that compulsion with me? Why won't you answer that reassurance question? Why won't you talk about the content of what my OCD is saying? Because OCD wants to squirrel you and get you into the content. Talk about the intrusive thought. But the content is irrelevant in that you do not need to fix the content. I do not need to prove to you that your hands are clean. I do not need to prove to you that you didn't cheat on that test. I do not need to prove to you that you have checked the door 5 times because intellectually you know that, but OCD doesn't care about that. And so we're not going to get into what I call the black hole of OCD that you can't get out of once you get in. We're going to support the person having the black hole instead of getting sucked into the black hole. Does that make sense? And that can be really hard because there are no thank yous when it comes to that. Kids are left feeling uncomfortable and they're not satisfying OCD, so they're not getting the relief. But long term, that's how we get through OCD, is by not scratching the itch, not getting that reassurance, not engaging with the content of the OCD thought, and sitting with the discomfort. OCD is not intuitive. And as a parent, we have to understand OCD on a fundamental level so that when our kids have these struggles, we know how to show up in an effective therapeutic way instead of inadvertently growing their anxiety. I do have a parent course called How to Teach Kids to Crush OCD, and I walk you through everything you need to know about OCD and then how to coach your child through their OCD struggles. And I took all this information from my clinical practice where I worked for 2 decades helping parents raise kids with OCD, and I want to help you as well. Don't forget to tune into part 3 coming up next. In my next video, I will be talking about how to motivate our kids, incentivize them, and have them do challenges around anxiety and OCD and how that will look different depending on if you're dealing with anxiety or OCD. And sometimes it's both. And so you might have to talk to your kids like it's anxiety some of the time and OCD other times, and really know which hat you're wearing because you are educated enough to understand the difference. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified because I do make new videos every Wednesday, and the next one's gonna be good. Take care.